Hello and welcome to our edition of Eye on Africa here on France 24. I'm Clarisse Fortuné. Let's start with the headlines. Arms embargo in Sudan must be enforced in South Sudan to protect civilians. Amnesty International says Ugandan troops on the ground are in clear breach of embargo terms. Moroccos Atlantic initiative is a gateway to the sea for the Sahel. The bold initiative aims to anchor landlocked nations like Mali and Burkina Faso to the Atlantic, but shaky security and poor infrastructure could sink the vision. And what happens when beauty meets wisdom? And a little sass. We'll meet the grandmothers of Thokoza in South Africa for a pageant with no swimsuit, no stilettos, just a whole lot of heart. As the UN Security Council prepares to vote on whether to renew the arms embargo on South Sudan at the end of this month, Amnesty International is warning of serious violations on the ground. Its new report points to illegal weapons transfers, fresh attacks on civilians, and Ugandan troops operating in the country without UN approval. Olivia Bizot has the story.
South Sudan has been under a UN arms embargo since 2018 after a peace deal ended 5 years of brutal civil war. But in recent months, fighting has flared again between government forces and the White Army, a militia group linked to First Vice President Riek Machar. Ugandan troops have since been deployed to support the government, and according to Amnesty International, that deployment breaches the embargo because neither Uganda nor South Sudan informed the UN Sanctions Committee or requested an exemption. But despite these violations, Amnesty is urging the UN Security Council to renew the embargo before it expires.
Whilst the arms embargo that was imposed on South Sudan in 2018 has not been a panacea to the human rights situation, we do feel that it would be a lot worse without it in place. Our concern is that if the UN Security Council does not renew and enforce the arms embargo when it is up for renewal at the end of this month, we worry that the floodgates would open, that parties to the conflict in South Sudan would acquire more weapons, more heavy weapons, and that those would be used to target civilians.
Amnesty is also raising concerns about South Sudan's use of attack helicopters. They point to satellite images that show military flights in recent months and say this likely means the government is breaking the embargo, which bans the import of spare parts. But it's not just governments. Private companies are involved too. One airline admitted to flying Ugandan troops and weapons into South Sudan in March. Amnesty warns that without stricter enforcement, these weapons could be used to target more civilians and intensify the situation on the ground.
An appeals court has sentenced Mauritania's former president Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz to 15 years in prison for abuse of office and illicit enrichment, an increase from the original 5-year term. The court also upheld the confiscation of Aziz's assets and the stripping of his civic rights. Investigators estimate that Aziz, who came to power in a 2008 coup, accumulated assets and capital worth $70 million during his presidency. Tidjane Thiam was once again elected head of the Democratic Party of Côte d'Ivoire following a vote held during an extraordinary Congress. As the sole candidate, he won 99.77% of the votes. On Monday, he had announced he was stepping back from the party leadership as he faced a dismissal procedure initiated by a senior party member. By challenging his Ivorian nationality at the time of his initial election in December 2023, she was seeking to have him removed from office. Despite his re-election as head of the PDCI, Thiam continues to face a battle to be able to stand this year.
He will run for office. There's no other name. We said there's no plan B. He will run for office and he will win the election. He's already won today. And then he'll win again in October 2025, that's for sure.
In 2023, Morocco launched an ambitious initiative to offer Sahelian nations, including Mali, Chad, Niger, and Burkina Faso, access to the Atlantic Ocean. The plan aims to boost Morocco's strategic influence across the region. But on the ground, security threats and weak infrastructure make the journey across the Sahel both challenging and dangerous. Harold Gerald reports.
In Massacre, Abdurrahman Abul Abeid's team is finishing off the engine maintenance before taking the road toward Niger. They will have to face many obstacles on the perilous journey and could benefit from an alternative route.
The main problem here in Chad is that there's a lot of sand on the roads. In Niger, there is somewhat less sand, but the road is significantly damaged. When traveling from Gigmi to Difa in Niger, the entire border region lacks security. Our vehicles often break down on the road. We must leave the truck behind and search for the nearest village to spend the night. We're afraid.
Neighboring Morocco has a plan for Sahel countries to access the international market through its future Darla Harbour in the disputed territory of Western Sahara, a 5,000 kilometer away from Massacre. Moroccan officials frequently travel to the region to promote the project, as they did last February in N'Djamena, the capital city of Chad. However, the details and real cost of the Atlantic initiative remain blurry.
The aim is to create an alternative African economic space which does not depend on Europe, which is experiencing economic backlash and worries about migration. The solution will come from dealing with those Sahelian countries, but of course, challenges still stand firm, especially on the financial aspect. This project needs heavy investments.
Last year, Chad confirmed its interest in the Moroccos Atlantic initiative. This project could be an alternative to shipping goods through the Douala Harbour in neighboring Cameroon, a laborious commercial way made more expensive by red tape and corruption.
Now to Senegal, where electric vehicles are becoming an increasingly common sight on the streets of Dakar. Mostly imported from China, many of these new electric cars are being used in the ride-hailing sector, part of the government's broader push for cleaner transport in the heavily polluted capital. Caitlin Kelly reports from Dakar.
These cars are the latest arrivals on Dakar's roads. Chinese-branded electric taxis. Taxi driver Yusu used to drive a petrol car. Now he's glad he switched over to electric.
An electric car is twice as profitable. With 6,000 CFA francs, I get up to 300 kilometers of range. I would have needed 15,000 francs for the same distance with a petrol car.
Yusu bought his taxi on credit from Mbe Mobility, a private electric vehicle dealership, joining 25 taxis of the same brand on the road in the capital. But as the sector is still young, the company has had to work hard to overcome challenges, especially due to the limits of infrastructure.
We had to set up the infrastructure to maintain the vehicles because there were no garages that knew how to service electric cars. We had to install a charging station to let the vehicles recharge. So all the work needed for the electric vehicle ecosystem to function in Senegal, we're doing it.
In May 2024, Dakar launched the Rapid Bus Transit System, which is 100% electric. Now, other environmentally friendly transit projects are also underway.
We're working with the EU team under the Global Gateway Framework on a project to restructure the public transport network, with the first phase in 2026 introducing 400 low-emission buses and a second phase for electric buses. But above all, we have a sustainable urban mobility plan through to 2035, aiming for 3.5 billion euros in investment to truly transform the city with clean, high-capacity transport.
Opened for a year, authorities say 18 million passengers have used the eco-bus system, as hopes of a greener future in Senegal grow.
Now to South Africa, in a township just outside Johannesburg, where catwalks come alive, not with supermodels, but with silver hair, Sunday bests, and stories that span generations. Meet the grandmothers reclaiming the spotlight and rewriting the rules of beauty, joy, and aging. Laurent Versecher.
Showing the youngsters how it's done, Margaret Fatiela takes a little sidestep before strutting her way across the red carpet. The atmosphere was boisterous inside the Tokoza Community Hall near Johannesburg as local grannies took part in a beauty pageant in front of a cheering audience.
I'll be turning 79 in August, but now I feel young again, like I can do everything.
On this catwalk, there were no swimsuits or gala dresses as contestants paraded in their Sunday best. A bit of light-hearted fun and a way to show appreciation to these grandmothers who, despite their age, often remain pillars of their communities.
Just see the grannies are suffering, and the grannies, they do a good job, and they're the hard workers. People, some of them, they don't understand that they must keep on loving the grannies. So I'm so great to see people to support me if I'm doing this.
Around 40% of South African children are at least partially raised by their grandparents, according to official data. Yet, despite this central role, senior citizens usually remain in the shadows.
The youth, we sometimes neglect them and just let them be. And this is a great reminder to them that you remain beautiful, you are appreciated.
Celebrating South African grandmothers, one swing of the hip at a time.
Beautiful ladies to end our edition of Eye on Africa. Thank you for watching. More news coming up on France 24.